Hello, my name is Sheryl Shaffer. Welcome to another program of the Veterans Helping Veterans TV series. I'm really excited to be back at the studio after being away for 6 months, and I'd like to welcome our guest. And today we're going to talk about the American Legion and some of the programs that the American Legion offers to veterans. So we're fortunate to have the newly installed District 13 Commander of Santa Clara County, Sherry Henry. Sherry, can you tell us a little bit about your military background?
I served 5 years in the Navy as a corpsman during Grenada. I joined the American Legion 8 years ago. It is something I strongly believe in. I like the programs that we do. I like having a voice to go to before Congress to fight for the GI Bills and the benefits in the VA system. So I like all those things about it. And I like where the American Legion is going today. It's technology, social media. It's going to go in a positive direction. I'm very excited about that.
I think that's awesome. And what are your plans for the upcoming year? What kind of events do you have planned for the district?
Primarily membership. We are certainly down quite a bit in our membership, not just California, but all across the country. So our focus will be on membership. Again, the different programs that we do for like Boy State and our community and our veterans and getting them the help that they need.
Why should veterans consider joining the American Legion? I'm going to ask you that question, and then I'm going to tell you why I joined the American Legion. It is because of the GI Bill, which I think is the greatest legislative act the American Legion has done on behalf of veterans for just generations. It's awesome. And it is being transformed now as we speak. They're going to make it better for the veterans, but every veteran should really consider joining a veteran service organization because it's really how we get our benefits. Because that's part of what commanders do, district commanders do, state commanders do, is they present legislation on behalf of veterans, and they present it to be voted on and to be enacted upon by Congress.
Correct.
So, what are some of the other programs besides Boy State and Girl State? Now, earlier you told me you were a writer. Can you tell us what that is? Because I think that's awesome.
The American Legion has a program called the American Legion Riders. It encompasses the whole Legion family, meaning an auxiliary member, the sons can join, and of course the Legionnaires. They are probably the most visible group of the American Legion. They're the fastest growing group of the American Legion. They do things such as send-offs for our soldiers that are going off into the war. When they come back, we escort them home. We do have the unfortunate task of sometimes escorting the KIAs to their final resting places. But they're a pretty exciting bunch, and they do a lot of other programs as well. Outside of the American Legion, golf tournaments, poker tournaments, to raise money to go to programs such as the Veteran Sportsman Alliance. We help them get funding, and that group takes their wounded soldiers out fishing and hunting and doing that sort of thing. Our focus this year is Pets for Vets. So we'll be getting involved with that program this year for our fundraiser.
That's awesome. And I know, Carolann, you've been involved in the American Legion for quite a while, and you have some special projects that you are working on. Can you tell us a little bit about your military background and a little bit about your projects?
Well, I'm an Air Force veteran, and I did 6 years in the Air Force, and I was a military personnelist, and then I retrained to become a drug and alcohol counselor. Then when I got out, after 6 years, I found myself missing a big part of my life. Because when I joined right after high school, I drank the Kool-Aid. The Air Force was my DNA. So I had to get back somehow. American Legion was that for me. I really craved the camaraderie. So what I learned about the American Legion really needing to expand its membership to really sustain its legacy, I decided recently to do something to help raise the visibility of National Guard and reservists. We're looking at expanding membership, so why not? We're always looking to recruit men and women who are still serving. So I'm working now with the National Guard, and there's a need for the National Guard to have an established emergency financial aid fund. They don't already have one that encompasses a group of the National Guard and reservists that don't deploy. So I'm working on a fundraising event for warriors here in the Silicon Valley, primarily for the National Guard and reservists that are still serving.
Now you're doing a military fashion show, is that right?
The fundraising event is called Warrior Fashion Week, and you know, one thing most people know about Silicon Valley is it's really an expensive place to live, and yet we have men and women who serve in uniform who don't even make the same salaries our engineers do with Google and Facebook and things like that, yet they thrive. So the Warrior Fashion Week is a way to raise funds to establish that emergency financial aid and for them to show off their consumer savvy and put together wardrobe that is sharp and entertaining, and it'll just be a fun fundraising event. Never before had we had something like that, and I think it's going to attract a lot of our still serving men and women here.
Now you're still serving yourself, correct?
I serve in a civilian capacity with the Air National Guard here at Moffett Field. I love it. I mean, I'm an Air Force veteran, and I serve alongside Air National Guard.
So you're really a vet, both of you obviously are veterans, really out there in the community trying to find unique ways to help veterans, whether it be through job fairs or whether it be through events at your local post, whether it be dinners, or I love some of the programs in the American Legion like Boys State, Girls State, because, you know, that teaches the young ones how our government operates or is supposed to operate. So I'm a big believer in the American Legion, and I personally think every veteran going to school on the GI Bill should join, just if for no other reason than to say thank you to the American Legion, since they were the primary organization that went before Congress and said we need to do something for our veterans besides just a handshake and a slap on the back and say thank you very much. And that's really how the GI Bill was born.
Right.
GI Bill to buy a house, GI Bill for education. And for me, I went into the service because I wanted a college degree because, you know.
Well, you know, the American Legion was really forward-leaning in its early years with the GI Bill. And what I see the American Legion today is big forward-leaning in women and veteran programs. It's inevitable. It has to be. You know, all around us for the last 5 years, we've seen the promotion of several women officers in leadership all across the board, even the Coast Guard. So now is the time for American Legion to really step in and start addressing some of the women veteran needs. So it's a perfect time for that.
And it's a perfect time just because of that for women veterans to really understand and consider joining the American Legion, because really we are better united as a group than we are as an individual trying to rail against the system. It doesn't work that way. It works better when you have 1,000 people saying we need to have this and we need to have it now. This is why we need it, as opposed to one person saying do it my way.
That's
doesn't
why
work
you got
that
all
way.
excited about Sherry being commander here
Yes.
in Santa Clara County. That doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't. And there haven't been that many.
No.
I know Commander Janet Wilson, she was like the first state commander for California for the American Legion. But I don't know if there have been other commanders, women veteran commanders in the state of California.
At department level, I don't think so.
I don't
Janet
think
was-
so either. So.
And I think that this year we will have our first woman national commander.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
Because I know the DAV is having their convention, and they have a woman veteran up for national commander as well. So it really is a time for women to rise up and get involved in these groups and say, you know what, we're veterans too. We're just as equal as the men are, and we've gone to battle too, so they can't use that excuse like they have in the past. Well, you didn't serve in battle, so you're not really a veteran. Pardon me. Yes, you are. You're a veteran. But really, it's all about getting others to join us and volunteer. What do you both get out of volunteering? Why do you do this? You don't have to do it. What do you get out of it?
I get the satisfaction of helping my veterans and their families. That's probably the biggest thing I get. And just knowing that I have a voice and that things are changing, and in some way I contributed to that. We were speaking about women things. There is a great big push for the VA to focus on women's health issues.
Yes.
And it's really fast coming up that they're going to start doing that for our women veterans, because up until about the last few years, they didn't really see them as being different. And they are completely different, as we all know.
Yes.
So there's a big push for that, which is very exciting. And just knowing we had a piece of that is pretty exciting as well.
And you, Carolann?
I mean, you know, camaraderie for sure, but in recent times it's really been since the introduction of, you know, MST cases in the military, giving voice to the military women who leave the service because their needs weren't being addressed, they weren't being believed, you know, they had a rough time really finding their voice and just being believable in their stories. So just seeing that there's ongoing need to represent the victims of military sexual assault in the military as well. You know, the American Legion is forward-leaning in that as well.
As they should be, because if you're going to really have a truly integrated military, both sexes have to be equal and treat each other with respect in order to become a cohesive force within the military, in order to accomplish the mission, whatever that mission may be. I've been a member of the Hollywood American Legion post like 3 years now. I love that post. It's so historical, and the building is in downtown LA. It's just a beautiful building. So I encourage everyone to join the American Legion. Through the American Legion and the Veterans in Film and TV in Los Angeles, I was fortunate enough earlier this year to go to film school. I went to the Art of Visual Storytelling with Miles Watkins in West Hollywood and did this for 9 weeks. It changed my life. I'm going to share 2 of the student films I made. The first one is called My Father's Flag. My father was 17 years old when he joined the Marines in World War II, and they sent him to Guadalcanal at the age of 18, 19, and here's his story. James Clarence Hoke was mainly raised by his mother on a small farm in Hutchinson, Kansas. 5 years later, when he was 17, he decided it was time to enlist in the Marine Corps. It's 1940, and Jim Hoke went to the Marine Corps recruiting depot in Parris Island, South Carolina for his basic training in infantry, learning to be a team player, and learning how to operate a variety of weapons. After his basic training, Jim was trained to be a telephone field repairman and electrician. After his training, Jim went to Cuba before he was sent to Guadalcanal. Jim Hoke served with the 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines of the 1st Marine Division. August 7th, 1942, the 1st Marine Division landed on the beaches of Guadalcanal. The Guadalcanal campaign was codenamed Operation Watchtower and was comprised of 3 major land battles and 7 larger naval battles. The weather was hot and humid. They marched everywhere and carried as much equipment as possible. They were like pack mules. The jungle is a dangerous place, and the enemy was everywhere. Jim Hoke was one of 16,000 Marines that were first sent to Guadalcanal. They were trained and ready for battle. Jim Hoke was trained and ready for battle and a member of Elite Infantry 1st Marine Division, which is the oldest and largest active duty division in the Marine Corps. There were about 3,000 Japanese troops on the island, and they were building an airfield. The Japanese moved their men at night in fast-moving destroyers and succeeded in landing large numbers of men onto the island. The Marines were constantly on the lookout for the Japanese snipers. They were everywhere. The airfield was critical for the Japanese as they would control the sea route between Australia and America. The Americans gained control of the airfield, therefore gaining control over the island, so they could better protect Australia from the Japanese invasion and could also protect the Allied buildup in Australia. By December of 1942, the Japanese withdrew their forces from Guadalcanal in defeat. Through the jungle had taken its toll on both sides, and they were exhausted. Approximately 20,000 Japanese soldiers and 23,000 Marines fought to control Guadalcanal. Like most men of the greatest generation, he did not talk a lot about his experiences on Guadalcanal. But we know that this was his defining moment. He had survived hell, killed the enemy Japanese soldier, and captured the enemy flag. The conditions were brutal on the island of Guadalcanal. Many of the Marines suffered from a variety of tropical diseases like malaria, dysentery, and dengue fever. My parents met on a blind date while my father was recuperating from his war injuries in a military hospital outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. My parents divorced when I was 3 months old, and my mother remarried when I was 6 months old. My father decided it was time to go back east and visit his mom, who lived in Miami, Florida. I did not know my father growing up. It was only as an adult that I got to know him. He was so proud of being a Marine, and basically the reason I am doing this is that I don't want his story to be lost. To me, he is a hero. Thank you, Dad. Jim Hoke retired from the Marine Corps with 27 years of military service. In 2009, I donated my father's flag, military rank, 1st Marine Division patch, and the Japanese soldiers patch to the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, so these artifacts may be preserved and his story is not forgotten. If the brave men and women in the military during World War II had not prevailed over the Nazis and the Japanese, we would be living in a much different world right now. The Japanese Rising Sun battlefield flag is made of silk and is approximately 27 inches high and 29 inches long. There are 2 rips on the right side. The condition is considered to be good. I was so proud to do that project about my father. It's one of my bucket list. My second film is about a distant cousin by the name of Derek Hendershot who travels the nation and he presents the Wall of Remembrance. And he happened to be in my hometown, which is San Jacinto, and I went over and filmed what he does for us, all of us, is awesome. The Wall of Remembrance.
When I help somebody find a name on that wall, I never know what I'm getting into, because I don't know if I'm taking them back to that moment. They were sitting in a Humvee when it was blown up and they walked out and their buddies didn't, or I'm taking them back to that moment when two men in uniform showed up to their door to let them know that their loved one wasn't going to be coming home anymore. What we try to do at the wall is create a healing spot where we can lay it down there and let it go for a moment and find some kind of peace. We also call the wall the front porch because it brings resources together in different communities to show the local veterans and the families that there are stuff out there to help. But when you see a vet, take a knee at the field cross, which is something that's been going on since the Civil War, they used to dig shallow graves to bury the dead, and they would use a rifle to mark that. So as a memorial, that is something that has become a military tradition. Our field cross has a few other things added to it. Our flag has 343 in honor of the 343 first responders that were lost in the global war on terror, and then the acts of 9/11. Also, we have a piece of the World Trade Center there because our wall also covers 9/11. The buddy I served with, William Wayne White, who was extended and went overseas with 3-4 in the initial push in the invasion of Iraq. I remember hanging out with him in supply as he was turning in gear. Well, being the Marines we always talked trash to each other, so I told him that he would be serving our country while I was at home drinking a beer. Turns out I went home, he went over to fight in Iraq. I get home one day from work, I grab a beer, turn on the TV, and before long I realized I was watching my unit in combat fight. So as I'm watching this, I see this face pop up in his dress blues, and it was my buddy's face. He had rolled a Humvee into a ditch and drowned. I didn't know what to do. I just hit the ground crying because I felt like such a, piece of really. But I buried that deep down inside for 10 years, and then I was able to take that wall across the United States to Brooklyn, where he was from. He was also the very first KIA out of Brooklyn, but I was able to meet his family and let them know that he did not die in vain. Battlefield Cross is a place where veterans can come to, just like they did overseas in the middle of battle, to remember their buddies. We have it there in honor of all victims that are on our wall. It's a place they can come and kneel, shed a tear if they have to, along with the wall. But it's something that's been going on since the Civil War. They used to bury veterans in shallow graves and mark it with the rifle, and that has become a tradition. So we have it there. We also have some things added to it because we also deal with the 9/11 victims. So we have 343 in honor of the first responders that were in the buildings. The field cross is a place where a veteran can come take a knee and remember that buddy that he lost and pray, a moment for him to go back and relive those horrific moments that he had gone through in battle, and maybe a chance to reflect and realize that he's here for a reason, to make sure that his buddy is not forgotten. The wall is just one big healing spot. There's so many different things that go on there, from Gold Star families first seeing their son or daughter's name to, veterans banging on the wall screaming, why did their buddy take a grenade? It's all different aspects, but it all creates some kind of healing where they can let go and they leave in a better place, knowing that their loved one or the veteran is not forgotten.
I want to say thank you to the American Legion, but especially to the Veterans in Film and TV Los Angeles for giving me the scholarship to attend this filmmaking class. I'm so proud of these projects. They're not perfect, but they tell the story. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
I would just like to encourage all of our vets to come and join the American Legion with us. We certainly do have a good time, and gives you an opportunity to have a voice, to fight for change, for benefits for all of our veterans.
Fight for change. That's exactly what the American Legion does in one way or another. It's all about making a difference for our veterans, past, present, and future. Carolann, closing comments?
I can only echo what the commander said, and that is if we want a viable voice in today's society, joining a veteran service organization, particularly the American Legion, who has always been forward-leaning in providing a voice for veterans, especially those who are still serving. They're not too young. It's a perfect time.
It's a perfect time. Make a difference in your community. Get off the sofa, stop watching that TV, get off the internet, become involved. Join the community of veterans, because guess what? We need you. We need you to make a difference for all of us. It's all about veterans, helping veterans live a happy, productive, successful life. Thank you so much. Please continue to watch Veterans Helping Veterans TV. We're going to be filming lots more in the near future. Thank you so much. Thank you.